ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So in this video I want to talk about my plan to increase my ability to dose even more Kalkwasser. But before we get into that, if you want to help support the channel and pick up some SPS frags, please visit reefbum.com. And with that, let's get into the video. So it's been about a year since I made the switch on my 187 gallon system from two-part to the use of a calcium reactor. And when I started using a calcium reactor, I started dosing Kalkwasser as well. And I borrowed the methodology from Chris Meckley at ACI Aquaculture. I talk about Chris a lot, but geez, Chris, you know, I gotta just keep giving you the props for this method because it has been working out really well. So this is a do-it-yourself method. This is not a Kalk stirrer. This is a 30-gallon drum with RODI water, and what I do is I have a super saturated solution of Kalkwasser in this drum. It is not mixed. I essentially fill it up every week and a half or so, and I have a doser for my 187 gallon system, this GHL 2.1 doser. So I've got two dosing heads. I'm dosing about 8,400 mLs of this super saturated solution of Kalkwasser per day. And how do I know it's super saturated? I measure the conductivity coming out of there. It's around 10.3 in terms of the conductivity. You could also measure the pH, and I believe if the pH is in the 12.5 range, you know it's super saturated. But again, I do not stir this solution, and it's been working out really well. Now I also in this drum have the GHL doser for my 225 gallon peninsula tank. It's grabbing the super saturated solution of Kalkwasser as well. It's making kind of a long run across the ceiling here, but it's drawing into this this vat. So what's going on here is the pH on the 187 gallon system is essentially the low right now. It's about 8.4. Actually, yeah, 8.4 at night and about 8.5. It even gets up to 8.6 at night. The alkalinity is in the right now 9.0 DKH. Sometimes it gets a little higher, sometimes a little lower. I target 8.5 to 9.0. So I'm dosing a lot of Kalkwasser to the 187 gallon tank, and these two frag tanks are plumbed into that system, the 75 gallon frag tank as well as this 50 gallon frag tank. So it's a very high demand in terms of this Kalkwasser. It's almost like, you know, the primary method right now is Kalkwasser in terms of the calcium and alkalinity supplementation. That's driving that higher pH, and the calcium reactor is really not turning on too often. So what the key to this method is to figure out how much, you know, water you're evaporating the system, and to replace that evaporated water with a supersaturated solution of Kalkwasser on the reverse light cycle, so at night. So I'm jamming in what I'm evaporating off at night when the lights on the display tank and the frag tanks are off. But what's going on with the peninsula tank is that my pH has been dropping because my corals have been growing, and so there's been a higher demand in terms of the calcium and alkalinity. And I've only been dosing maybe, I think, about half of what I've been dosing for Kalkwasser on this system. So the pH has drifted down below the target levels that I like. So it's like right now the low is 8.1, 8.2, and the high is 8.3, maybe 8.4. So I need to start dosing more Kalkwasser for the peninsula tank. And the only way that I can do that is to add another do-it-yourself drum. So I kind of was thinking about what I could do in that regard. I don't have the space in this sump room right here to do that. I mean, I thought about putting another 30-gallon drum behind this door, but the door wouldn't fully close. I am definitely running out of room here in terms of my primary equipment room, sump room for these two tanks. So I had to be a little creative. I had to be a little creative and come up with a creative solution. So what I decided to do was to go through this wall and into the sump. Let me turn on the light for the Dreambox right here. So this is the filtration system. This is the Dreambox for the Peninsula tank. And I'm essentially what I came up with is going through the wall right here. And so right now, in terms of the RODI water, this is my 50-gallon RODI drum, okay? And so when I have, want to do makeup water, I pump it, from here into this 50-gallon drum. So that's where I mix the salt. Now I have a couple of valves right here, but essentially what I do is, I could pump it into the saltwater makeup water drum to mix up new salt water, or if I turn a couple of valves, this valve I turn that way and this valve I turn the other way, it will pump it into this 30-gallon drum. Okay, so I needed to figure out a way to set that up, similar way to set that up for the Peninsula tank. And so I spent a lot of time plumbing and doing, putting a couple more valves in place and just tapping into what I already had. And I tapped into this line. I spent several hours doing the work, and then when I was done, I was so proud of myself. And then I realized I tapped into the wrong line. I tapped into the line that sends the mixed salt water to my sump, to both sumps actually. So I've got valves right here, and so if I want to pump water to the sump for the 187-gallon tank, I keep the valves turned that way. If I want to pump mixed salt water to the Peninsula tank sump, I turn the valves in the opposite direction. Comes up and over, down, right here. So yeah, I tapped into that line by mistake, so I screwed up and had to redo it. Had to put in a couple of couplings and take out the valves. To do that, what I ended up doing, so what I should have done originally was tap into this particular line coming out of the RODI drum. And so right now the way the valves are set is for it to pump the RODI water right into the saltwater mixing drum. But if I turn the valves the opposite direction, they will go up this new piece of plumbing, up along the beam right here, down below, and through the wall. And on the other side of this wall, I've got this new 30-gallon drum. All right, so I came right in through here, and so this is what I need to run the additional Kalkwasser for the Peninsula tank. I've got this additional PVC pipe all set up to run the 1/4-inch flexible tubing. So this will double my capacity to dose Kalkwasser and ultimately to get the pH and the alkalinity up a little bit. Right now my alkalinity is around 7.5 DKH for the Peninsula tank, and that's too low for me. Now another thing I should mention with this method is that with my Profilux 4 controller, the fact that I'm using the doser that's hooked into that controller, I could set lower and upper limits of pH. So if my pH, let's say exceeds 8.5 at night, I could shut down the Kalkwasser dosing, and at the same token, I could also set a lower limit for the pH. So even though I do have a set amount in terms of the dosage, I could switch that out and basically make it pH dependent and just have the doser dose as much Kalkwasser as is needed to maintain, let's say, an 8.3 or greater pH. At this point, I don't have those things set up, but I may do so in the future. So that's the plan of attack, doubling down on my capacity for dosing Kalkwasser.
I don't know what it is about Kalkwasser. I've talked about this before in other videos on my live stream. It's just got magical properties. The corals love it, so I've got to up the ante on that front. Anyway, with that said, if you folks have any questions or comments, please leave them in the video description below. And I will see you next time. Later.